I'll call the meeting to order. Good evening, everyone. I'm Di Joko, Chair of the Human Rights and Inclusion Committee. Welcome to our May 2023 Human Rights and Inclusion Committee. I'll start by having Bill Graham read the Native Land Acknowledgement.
In keeping with our values of equity and inclusion, and to support those who experience marginalization, this evening's meeting will begin with the Native American Land Acknowledgement. We acknowledge that this meeting is taking place on the ancestral homelands of the Nankig and Agawam people. Historical evidence shows that Nankig and Agawam were peaceful in their relationships with the European settlers. However, their population depleted rapidly due to smallpox and other pandemic Old World diseases, unknowingly introduced by the earlier European colonists to the East Coast. To honor the Nakia and Agawam communities, along with other indigenous peoples who inhabited these lands now known as Danvers, and who may be lost into history, let us take a moment to recognize the past, present, and future of indigenous peoples and reflect on our roles within the settler colonization. We acknowledge these ancestral grounds we have collectively gathered upon and support the resilience and strength that indigenous people have shown worldwide.
Thank you very much. Before we move on to the third item on the agenda, which is the approval of the minutes, and we have 2 months worth of minutes to approve, February 2023 and April 2023. We did not have a meeting in March. I'll take a chair prerogative to welcome back our Vice Chair, Kristen Perkins, who is back. We had a baby girl, Isla Mae Perkins, so the HRC family is growing. And I had a chance to meet Isla. She's just adorable, so please bring her next time. I'll now move on to the third item of the agenda, which is the meeting minutes approval. I'll need a motion.
What minutes are being approved?
February and April.
Can I make a motion about April?
Sure.
As my notes indicate that there was discussion led by Shipla on the Massachusetts Indigenous Peoples legislative agenda, I would like that added to the minutes, please.
Okay. So hold on. I would need a motion first, and then a second, and then we can have the discussions and make any amendment. So Bob is making the motion for approval of the minutes of April.
Correct.
So we can do that. We can do them separately. That's fine. I'll need a second on that.
Second.
Okay. Any discussions? Bob, I'm sorry. Can you go ahead again?
Yes, I just want to add that to the minutes, that there was discussion
Okay.
of the Massachusetts Indigenous Peoples legislative agenda at the State House.
Perfect. Thank you. Any further
Led by Shipla, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Any further discussions? Okay. So we will be voting on the minutes for April as amended. So April 2023 minutes as amended by Bob. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? None. The minute carries. I'll need a motion for the February meeting.
So moved.
Okay. Any second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded. Any discussions? Here none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. The motion carries. Citizen query number 4. We don't have any today. I'll now move on to the liaison updates. See. The Honorable David Mills was unable to be here today. He did send me a note, if I can find it. I don't have the note. Our select board liaison, David Mill, is not here today. All he said was that he was elected chair, a new chair of the select board this week. So congratulations, and that all 5 members of the select board support our activities, and will continue to do so. I think that's kind of, in a nutshell, the summary of what he reported. There was nothing else to report. Pastor Voigt?
Nothing to report. Our meeting has not occurred yet. And also, I will not be staying for the whole meeting tonight. I'll be here for the Pride report, and then I need to leave, just to let the group know.
Thank you. Lieutenant Rob?
Apologize for not getting my update in. The only thing I have is on May 10th, Chief Level, Captain Sanborn, Jasmine, and myself, we attended the ADL's Law and Education breakfast in Salem.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to the next item of the agenda, which is the DEI report out. Jasmine?
Thank you. So I just wanted to continue to remind folks about our updated website and the additional resources that we now have on there, particularly the incident bias report form that continues to live on the equity and inclusion page as an opportunity to catalog instances of bias in the community with the option of anonymity or not. And people have been using that form, and I'm happy to report people are engaging in it in that way, and it has led to some positive action behind the scenes, so I hope folks continue to do that. And also just a reminder that there is a function to opt in to have either calendar reminders or text reminders about when meetings are happening, which can be a really helpful tool just to remind you all as these meetings can creep up on us month to month. So we have these options there to help us all, and I really encourage folks to use that, especially because it can save me an email sometimes if folks are emailing me about when's the next meeting. So I also just wanted to comment on some of the DEI-related initiatives out of the library. There is a donation drive happening from now until June 2nd to collect items for the Boomerang thrift stores, which work with Fenway Health to provide funding for LGBT+ healthcare, education, research, and advocacy. And I believe Shilpa has flyers. And they're gonna have a sorting party on June 3rd from 11 to 1 in the Gordon Room, and I believe we'll be creating space for them during the Pride Party as well to continue to collect those items. I additionally wanted to elevate this new opportunity in the community. The library is having adult ESL conversation circles for beginners with a woman named Teresa Osorio on I believe the first and third Saturdays of the month from 10 to 11 in the library classroom, and there is registration on the library website. I really want to elevate this because this is something that I have been contacted about from members of the community that have that need. Right now, it seems like they're focusing on Portuguese and Spanish-speaking people who want to practice their English. So I would love your support in spreading the word. As you know, it can be kind of a conundrum. We have these great opportunities and nobody uses them, and because no one's using them, we think we don't need them when we know we need them. So I would love, again, just support in raising awareness about that. I feel like if that opportunity is taken advantage of, that will also give us an access point to members of the community who we don't often get a chance to engage in. So I hope we can support the library for this. I also just wanted to...
Jasmine, is that free of charge to the residents?
It is free.
Okay.
And one more question on that. Is there going to be anything on social media so that we can share it?
So it's already on the library website and on the town website as well. Is there anything else you want to add, Shilpa?
Yeah, we're in the process of translating that into Portuguese and Spanish, so we'll have those out soon, and I can send them to Jasmine, and she can put that on the town website, and we'll have it on the library social media as well.
You can probably share it through the schools too.
Yeah, yeah.
Other questions about any of that?
Yes. Is this gonna be like a session, like starting?
It's already started in May, and it seems like it's just like an informal conversation hour. So
Okay.
very low lift, and just hoping that folks we know about it so they use it.
Yeah, so
Perfect.
first and third Saturday from 10 to 11 of every month.
Thank you.
Did I miss other questions?
Is there a volunteer opportunity here, or?
I don't
I
believe.
showed up. I mean, I speak Spanish. Is it enough?
Well, we
Showed up.
already have someone who's doing it, but I can ask as
Yeah,
well.
that'd be great. I know I similarly would like to get in touch with the women organizing just to see what other opportunities there are. Language access as a concept in this community is something that I am beginning to pursue because it's already a need here. And language access looks at everything from like translation, interpretation, spoken language, American Sign Language. So it is something that I am trying to get into. Simon?
Can I add something?
About the visa? Sure.
I think what it will be really helpful is to spread the word and to get, so people know that they can come.
And the last part of my report out, I did just want to take a moment to really commend the professionalism and diligence of the library staff in allowing me to lend support and guidance on how to navigate a lot of the outside noise surrounding the drag queen makeup tutorial that took place last week. Not only were they able to really navigate that with a lot of grace, they still managed to continue to prioritize the safety of our library employees and the children who attended that event. And I know that we learned a lot in this process that's really challenged the way we think about hosting events and how we want to do that moving forward. I am happy to hear that the kids who attended had a wonderful time, and I'm really grateful that our public library was able to deliver on something that the kids themselves asked for. And I also want to name that that wouldn't have been possible also without the thoughtful planning of the police department. We had a lot of conversations. They were very patient. We really kept in the loop, and we were almost over-prepared, which was really nice to not get caught flat-footed. So I really commend Lieutenant Sullivan and Chief as well for all of that help in that process.
Any questions, comments for Jasmine? Here none. Speaking of that event, I was there, and if you can allow me a couple minutes, I was putting my thoughts together about that event, the way it went down, and kind of had to write some notes down. And I would say that despite recent progress, the LGBTQ plus community continues to face significant barriers of equality as protections against discriminations based on sexual orientation or gender identity are challenged every day. The youth still encounter harassment in schools. And we also know that the suicide rate among LGBTQ youth is very high because of all that bullying. There's still a lot of hate and prejudice against this community, and many lesbians, gay, bisexual, transgender persons still live in a cave of terror. This is to quote our own Honorable David Mills. And the event from last week by the library was put in place because of the feedback that they got from the youth that they wanted such an event. There was a lot of misinformation and a lack of education around gender and sexuality. There was a lot of information about that event that was talking about things that the event did not reflect. And this was all done to hurt the event and hurt our community. The event did draw a lot of protests and counter-protests. I went on the library website, and what I saw was, the title of the event was Drag Makeup for Teens with Miss Diamond Whitfall. The blurb promoting the event stated the following: teens who know makeup better than a drag queen, whether for pride or prom, come put a look together with the amazing, fabulous Miss Diamond Whitfall. Register online. The program is open for kids, for youth 12 to 18. You can bring your own material to work with, but we also have extra that you can use. Basically, the way I understood the event was, the drag queen comes to show teens how to do eye makeup. That was it. But the things that were being portrayed were far, far from what the event was about. And this was just to stir fear and to hurt our community. So I'd like to thank the library for putting the event together to address the needs of these youth in our community, and to pledge that the HRC, and I think I can speak for all of us, will continue to support such initiatives. I actually attended the trustee meeting after the event. It was my first meeting of the library trustee, to express my thanks and gratitude to the trustees, the library director, and her staff. And I'm also grateful for all the people who attended that meeting of the trustee, not just to express their support, but also to share their lived experience. You know, although there isn't necessarily a wrong or right way to protest, or counter-protest for that matter, I believe we should continue to remain focused on the topic at hand. What I observed, this is just a couple of my observations as I was at the library last week. The event was very well attended, and most people there, it was an overwhelming amount of support for not only our youth, but for the event and for our community. In my observation also, the people that were saying things that were not necessarily appropriate, even though they were in support of the event, were not necessarily from our community. And that's the danger when people spread misinformation. I do not love the vitriol. However, I understand that some of the anger behind that is coming from a place of fear and concerns, as little rights are being stripped away every single day for members of this community. So this event was about the youth in our community. And by the time the event ended, I felt like it wasn't about our youth anymore. It became something where the adults were just going back and forth about other politics. So it's important that we stay focused on the actual things that we are there for. At the end of the day, while the HRC appreciates the intent and the support from our neighbors in the region, ultimately our first priority is to mobilize our residents from our own community to lend the support to our youth. They need us, they need our support. So Danvers, if you're listening, we need to come together to support the youth in our community. As someone once said, the ultimate tragedy is not the oppression and the cruelty of the people, but the silence over that. So I implore all of us to continue to support our youth and educate ourselves and just help these kids who need our help. So sorry I went a little longer than I wanted to, but I felt that I had to say it because it's been burning in my chest for some time since last week. It was a great event, and I just implore all of us to continue to support not only the library, but the youth of this town who need us. Thank you. Sorry. Any other further questions, comments about Jasmine's report? Here, not. Yes.
I'd like to add to Dee's comments, just to clarify again about the event. It was a demonstration, so we did have Miss Diamond Wigfall there who demonstrated, was up front, and the kids were sitting at individual tables with their materials, watching, and then trying to put on the makeup for themselves. And there were other adults present in the room, so just I want people to be aware of this because there was a lot of misinformation. A lot of things were sensationalized on our social media, and that was not helpful, both for people who were going to attend, for the staff in the library. It wasn't really helpful, a lot of the vitriol that we saw, and that was posted on social media. And that's all I wanted to say. No.
Thank you. And this is a good segue to our 7th item on the agenda, which is Pride. It's coming up on June 1st. Paul.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had a meeting on May 11th. I'll give you some of the highlights of that meeting, and then I would like to offer an opportunity for any of the subcommittee members to fill in more of the gaps, as I only have a memory that goes so far. Okay? Now, we settled on a budget somewhere in the neighborhood of $2,000 plus help from the police department, which I'll ask Lieutenant Sullivan to detail that. We do have a guest speaker lined up for the event in front at Town Hall. We will have the raising of the flag at the police department at 3:30, Town Hall at 4, and then from that point on, we will proceed to the library lawn for the 2-hour social type of event. We are working right now to finalize the number of vendors who will be attending to the event. Most of them will probably most likely be from Danvers, but we do have some from Beverly that have suggested they would like to attend. We have somewhat finalized the program, but we're not there yet. We will do that in the coming meetings. We have another meeting scheduled, I believe it's for May 25th at the police department. And then if we need be, we will have another further meeting. I think it might be a Zoom type meeting right before the event, just to clear up anything that has to be cleared up. We do have both the police department, who they've always attending the flag raising and the library. And we also have the fire department coming too, so they will be with us for the event. And then I'll stop there, and I will ask if Jasmine, if you have anything to add to the we talked a lot about T-shirts, and there are other real small items, but they're not small budget-wise, but they take a lot of time. But we're going to be doing T-shirts and raffles and things like that. So I thought maybe the committee would like to hear from those of you who are more familiar with those particular topics than I am.
Yeah.
Before Jasmine jumps on, have we already extended the invitation to the fire department?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, no, Paul, I think you did a great job of summarizing where we're at. Things the community can expect are that are similar to last year will be another story time. We'll have the lawn games. The raffle will continue again as well, and trivia. trying to think of what's new.
Buttons too.
There'll be buttons, which are really fun. So that's a little bit about the outline of the day, and we're working on making sure we have like stickers and other kinds of giveaways. I personally really wanted glow sticks, but it's not going to be dark enough, so I let that go. But that's the gist of it. We also have been in communication with PRISM, the student group, to talk about what their involvement in our flag raising program will be as well. So we should have some youth participation in that, which I'm looking forward to. I open it up to the other subcommittee members for more specific things.
Yeah, so the intent is that the flag raising will begin at 4 o'clock following the 3:30 beginning time with the flag raising at the police department. The intent is that the flag raising itself would last for like 45 minutes. That's kind of the sweet point. Potentially it'll go a little bit longer. Dee, we would like you to do like the introduction and the welcome and the introduction to all those that are our special guests at that flag raising. At that point in time, I would introduce our special speaker who will be there. The speaker is Renee Manning. Renee was at the demonstration, and so a few people had an opportunity to meet her. I initially met her a few years ago while in seminary. Renee is a newly ordained minister up in the Andover area. She herself is trans, has that journey and experience herself. That was an important part of who we wanted this year, given the climate. That trans individuals have been traveling in these last few years, and so she will be sharing part of her story with us this year and speaking at the flag raising. Like Jasmine just said, we're going to have some PRISM students speaking, and they will be the ones that are raising the flag. And then we would like to invite Steve Bartha then to be able to speak, say a few words, talk about the event itself, and then have him officially segue to the social part of the event and Open Pride Month officially. So we're looking at that sort of a transition. So tentatively, that's what we're looking at for that period of time, and then hopefully being in the space over at the library lawn by approximately 5 o'clock. There'll be food trucks that'll be there. That'll be available for people for food, and then talking about story time starting by like 5:15 while kids are still kind of active and stuff and fresh, be able to jump into story time, and then the evening kick open. What my question is for the group is who will be available on that Thursday evening to kind of jump in and help volunteer? Like Jasmine was saying, we're looking at different activities going on throughout the evening. There'll be lawn games going on, button design, that's going to be happening. There's going to be the story time, and then we're going to have a high school group that I don't know if we've confirmed that yet, but closing out the evening at 6:45 is what we're tentatively looking at. And then the raffle drawing happening at the very end of the evening. So there's going to be a few things that are going to be happening. So what we're looking is for volunteers who will be maybe for blocks of time of 45 minutes to an hour, just kind of shifting and moving. And some will just be people volunteering just to be in the space, moving about, to kind of monitor, answering questions, being present. There'll be tables that folks can be at. There's going to be like a snack table, to just kind of hand out snacks and be present. And then I believe we're going to probably need some help with some cleanup afterwards. So those that can be present at the end of the event who are willing just to kind of help clean up, make sure all the garbage is where it needs to be, maybe break down the tables and at least stack them so they're easy to kind of move for folks to pick those up. So if I could just have a show of hands who will be available for part of the evening, that'd be great. Okay.
I'll be there as a vendor,
Okay.
but I will also be able to kind of chip in as needed, but I don't want to sign up for anything and not be at my table.
Okay.
I did want to add that Eileen and I will be there around 3 o'clock to set up,
Yep.
make sure that the tables are where they need to be. And for the buttons, the library, the button makers from the library, so there will be 2 of us at that table, and also making sure that Ms. Diamond has the books and
Wonderful.
everything for story time.
See, because a lot of the nuts and bolts, I'll get to you in 1 second, okay, Bob? There's a lot of the nuts and bolts of the things like the storyteller or like the trivia. There's trivia going on
Yes.
as well. We've got the nuts and bolts covered. It's just the volunteers to provide that extra support.
Right, yeah.
And so we're not like expecting you guys to jump in and expect to like run
Right.
things. So, Bob, did you have a comment you wanted to make?
I'm going to be at a table in our North Shore UU Church.
Oh,
Is
perfect.
going to have a table, but I will try to get free and move around
That's great.
and also help with the cleanup.
That'd be great, thank you.
So,
Any other comments at all? I think everybody's got an impression on how things are gonna run, and hopefully, it's gonna run very, very smooth. What we do have is a backup plan if it's rainy or not gonna work. Maple Street Church, our fellowship hall, will have tables available there, and people can come inside, and the food trucks can be in our parking lot. So if it's a rainy, miserable day, hopefully we can have that plan B to help kind of at least salvage some of the day and try to do things a different way. That's a little bit of a backup plan that we have in our back pocket. So anyway, thank you so much. Question?
I'm not on the committee, but if people from the community are, interested in volunteering, in these kind of general ways, who is the key person to whom they should?
They can send an email either to Paul or to Jasmine, and then they can kind of filter then into the into our list of volunteers. That would be perfect. Thank you. Yes.
Pardon me, will there be something to identify the volunteers so that, the community folks know us?
I think what we may come up with, maybe some sort of pin or something like that. We'll come up with something.
Name tags, maybe, something.
Yeah.
Good question. Yes, I think that would be very appropriate.
Yeah, just so people know who to go to, or kind of an ask me sort of name tag or something.
HRIC
Yeah, something.
committee member, whatever.
Volunteers.
Yeah, or a big volunteer sort of thing. We'll
Yeah.
come up with something just to help people know where to go. So, any other questions? Yes.
I don't know if this was already mentioned, but I believe a takeaway from last year was about the bathrooms being open, but since the
It'll
library
be
will be
open.
open.
Yep.
The library's
That's
open till 9 on
That's the
Thursday.
beauty of
Yeah.
doing it during the week.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
So bathrooms and food were an issue last year, so
Yes.
we've checked those boxes this
And
year.
it's Thursday when the town hall is open late too.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Yes?
Mr. Lieutenant Sullivan, could you elaborate on the commitment the police have made to our budget?
So for the flag raising at the police department, we reached out to Nagley in Salem. If members remember, about 2 months ago, a few of their members were targeted of a hate crime in Salem. I believe the individuals they were either arrested or they were summoned to court, but they are being prosecuted. So each year we do the same thing. We try and ask somebody if they would honor us and raise the flag at the police station. We thought it would be excellent to reach out to Natalie staff and their members. And they're able to, they've got several things going on the 1st. It's a busy day, but they're able to come to the station and raise the flag there. Also, the police department wanted to make sure there was enough money for the swag. I think that's the term. The giveaway stuff that people can take and walk around with and then take home with them and remember their wonderful time with us at the Pride event. So the Danvers Police Association donated $300, and then I was then the person to purchase the swag, so somebody thought it was a good idea to unleash me on Amazon with money to spend. So it's been a busy couple of days, but most of the stuff is already here in my house, ready to go.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Do you have anything to add?
I have one more thing to add.
Yes.
The donation drive that Jasmine mentioned earlier for Boomerang that the library is doing, we're also going to have a table at the event so people can bring donations to our event and drop them off. We'll have a banner or a sign making sure they know where to drop off the items, the donations.
Perfect.
That's it for me.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you so much, man. Busy subcommittee.
Oh, yeah. A lot of fun.
I will now move on to the next item of the agenda, which is the scholarship subcommittee. Bob, Bill, and myself have reviewed the scholarship applicants. Great applicants. I mean, it was the worst year to only have one scholarship because they were so deserving.
There was not a single one that wasn't deserving.
Yeah,
of the application.
yeah. So we did come up with one person that will be receiving the scholarship. The name has been communicated to the school, and I think the ceremony is on June 8th in the evening. So we will be reaching out to the friends to see if we can have one scholarship for $1,000 for this individual. So, yes. I think that's anything else.
They were utterly outstanding candidates.
Yeah.
It's really a shame that we had to single one out.
Yes, yes. Which give us comfort in the fact that we got youth in this town that are doing great things. So that was amazing.
Yes.
Any questions, comments? Here none? Okay. Move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the Massachusetts Human Rights Committee update. Shilpa.
I just wanted to remind everybody about the annual event that the MAHRC does. This year they're doing something called Bending the Arc Toward Health Equity, which is tomorrow. It's from 10 to 3 at the Massachusetts State House. You can attend in person or online. I have flyers printed out, so if you sign up, you will get a link where you can attend virtually, and I'll pass those around as well. So you can register to sign up for breakout rooms, and if you are attending in person, there is a continental breakfast and lunch, and of course, the event is free.
I'll encourage anyone who is able to attend to go. It's, I think this is the first time they're doing it in person in 3 or 4 years, and it looks like it'll be a really good event.
Just to share too that I will be in attendance, so I'm also, I guess, representing this committee in person. And I just want to acknowledge, for those who might be like, oh, that still sounds vague, like what is it? Anytime you have these groups convening, it's a really good opportunity to connect with other people who are doing work similar to what we're trying to do. So if you've noticed, Dutrichet, with the help of Shilpa, have been trying to make an effort to establish connections with the Massachusetts Human Rights Coalition. And that's a good way for this committee to get insight into how we overcome challenges that come up for us, or how we navigate structural questions that we might have, or just to keep us moving forward in a positive direction. And so this is just another opportunity to meet people, to do that, and to be in conversation with the focus being about health equity. It's an opportunity to hear from people doing that kind of professional work, so like the direct primary source, that can then inform decisions that we make here, and the kind of programming we want to do, and the kind of statements we want to make, and the kind of votes that we want to pass. So I just wanted to kind of demystify that, because it's easy to see a flyer and be like, okay, people are gathering, what are they doing? But again, it's really like learning that information, building those connections, apparently getting continental breakfast. So I'm happy to also bring back some reportable items at our next meeting from that as well.
Thank you very much. I'm still on the fence.
I know, I'm not even going to ask you. Again, there is a virtual link, so if you, it would be wonderful too to have some of you listen in on things, just so I could talk to you about it after.
And I believe it's still, if you have not signed out, you can still sign up now. So it's not too late yet. They will be having great speakers. So perfect. The next item on the agenda is Juneteenth, which is there's not much to report here. Will be the North Shore Juneteenth Association is going to be helping us with our Juneteenth celebration this year. And I think they had the option of having someone do a reading or having a poet. And I think we'll be having a poet.
Do you want me to read the program?
Sure. And I'll be reaching out to Johan at some point to iron things out here.
Yes, so the program as it stands right now, we will be joined by a poet by the name of Judith Wilson. There will also be a singer singing Lift Every Voice, which is considered the Black National Anthem, Tanya Crowell. And our speaker this year will be Kayshawn Little. And then we'll have one more speaker, Reverend Andre Bennett, just to frame the remarks in the community and to elevate this historical moment.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? And I believe that's on June 19 at 2 p.m. in front of Town Hall.
Correct.
Yes. Any questions? Here, none? Okay, perfect. Oh, yeah, about the Juneteenth, before I forget. The Juneteenth proclamation, along with the Race Amity Day that's coming next, we've sent a request to the town manager to have that on the select board meeting for June 6th for consideration. So those two items hopefully will be on the agenda for June 6th select board meeting. Race Amity Day, Jasmine?
Yes, I'm now trying to remember if we had a meeting since the documentary screening. No. Okay, so I probably should talk about that too. Sorry, losing track of time. So on May 4th, we did the documentary screening for Race Amity Day, which was actually really interesting. We had about 10 people show up, and this documentary talked about different historical cross-racial partnerships and how that helped further advance racial equity in this state. So they talked a little bit about I forget the names of folks, but like, for example, there was a white man who worked a lot behind the scenes with Dolores Huerta and Cesar Chavez during the laborers movement, the Chicano movement, as well as Frederick Douglass's cross-racial friendship with an Irishman who really helped him see beyond just a freedom for enslaved people, but thinking about like global freedom and what that looked like, because he became friends with this Irishman during the potato famine. So those are just two brief examples, but again, thinking about how those relationships led to furthering equity and change, positive social change. And afterwards, the participants and I did engage in a brief conversation, maybe 30 minutes or so, just kind of unpacking the movie and talking about why haven't we heard about this? What does that look like in our own lives? And one of the things that I challenge them with, that I would challenge you all with, is to really think about who is in your circles. When you think about the people who make up your family group, your friend group, your work group, and even the media that you consume, what are the racial backgrounds of those people in those groups? I also ask you to consider how often are you, and this is also for the people watching, how often are you the only person of your race or one of two in a space? I thought that was an interesting question I posed to the group of predominantly white people who were like, yeah, it's happened to me before. And I said, and how many of you have had this experience, I don't know, 4 to 6 times this week already? And then only my hand was raised. So just, again, thinking about our positionality always in society is really important. And I loved how willing the participants were to grapple with that. So to keep that ball rolling, we have the festival happening on June 11th on the library lawn from 1 to 3. And some of the things that we have lined up for that day, we do have a jazz group that's going to perform some music. Wangari Fahari is a singer. She'll be joining us as well. We will have Dr. Charles Desmond and Dave McKenna interviewed. For those of you who remember Eva Costarelli, who did the flamenco for us in the Latinx Heritage Month celebration, she'll be coming back, and then we'll also have some youth participation. So very excited and continuing to promote that between now and then.
Perfect, thank you. Any questions, comments? Yes, Jorge?
1 to 3.
Thank you.
Yes.
We are partnering with the Heathmere Center still? Oh, perfect, okay.
Correct, yes, thank you for reminding me. So this is a partnership primarily with the Heathmere Center for Cultural Engagement, so Lauren, who's done those trainings with us. It's also a partnership with Race Amity of North Shore, the Danvers Cultural Council, and the Massachusetts Cultural Council. So it's taken quite a few partnerships to make this happen, and we're really fortunate to have that support, like regionally and statewide.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? None? Perfect. The next item on the agenda is communication expectations with liaisons. What I just wanted us to think about here was, as we get our liaisons at the meeting, how do what happens here gets translated to the people that they're liaisons for? I don't know if that makes sense. And what is our expectations? Like, if we have Lieutenant Rob is here every month, how does the information get translated to the department or to the officers at the department? Does that require maybe that once every quarter when they're having their meeting, one of us show up as support to relate what he's reporting there? Or at the school, for example, when we have discussions here, how does that get translated to the school committee, and so that they can continue to support our initiative, we continue to support their initiative. So I don't have a specific way or expectation. I just wanted to throw it out there for discussion, just so that we have that continuity, so that everything just doesn't stop at the liaison level, because we will really want the information that happens here to infiltrate the areas where those liaisons are. Pastor Douglas, when he gets to the interfaith partnership, we would love him to be able to relate to them what's happening here, what we're doing, as much as he relates to us what they are doing. Did that make any sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're looking for liaisons.
No, we do have liaisons.
No, it sounded to me like you're looking for members on this committee to be liaisons, no?
Not necessarily. If we think I don't think that's necessary, but I'm just thinking, what are we expecting of our liaisons once they get with the people that they're liaisons for?
Right, we want it to be a two-way communication of liaison,
That's
not
right.
just bringing here, but also
Bringing back.
Right.
And
right, that makes
what
sense.
does that look like? Is it monthly as well? Is it every quarter? Is it during weekly meeting where, and I think I had the same conversation with Jasmine when I was saying, if maybe they have staff meetings at town hall, and then, she's there as the DEI, so in the management world, but if there's something to report from this committee, then I'll expect her to be in that space and be like, oh, by the way, this is what the HRC is doing or intend to do.
I also think, specific to the select board and the school committee, it would also, I feel like those have higher attendance than this meeting, and perhaps figuring something out there, it could bring more visibility into the work that we're doing, because people either attend in person or they watch those.
Exactly. Any thoughts, ideas?
Well, one thing we had an education committee that had met maybe 2 or 3 times a year with the school administration. You've been to those. Sometimes they only centered around a specific topic, but it could have been Martin Luther King. But then there are other times when we talk about a variety of things, hiring, curriculum, those type of things.
Yep.
Now, we haven't had one, well, we've had a few of those, but they really centered on MLK this fall. But if we were to, I think we should continue that committee to sort of liaison with the school administration, because they are coming in with a new superintendent. So I think it's a good opportunity for us to get to know him, his staff, and to express some of our feelings as to what we're looking for too. That may not be what you're specifically speaking to, but it's something we've had in place in the past. And at times it's worked out well, other times, well, it just didn't work out that well. But that's the way things are.
Yeah.
I was on that committee. I think Dr. Desmond was on it, and Bob was on it, and we could have, someone else can get on it, I can drop off, but we should, I think, continue a tight relationship, as tight as possible with the school administration.
It's a good way to be in communication with the school and for there to be interaction, with this committee, which I think is necessary.
Okay. So Yeah.
And to add to that, I'd like to say, what are our expectations from the liaisons that we have? I mean, when we do communicate with them, we'd love to hear back from them. That way it is also a two-way street, because we don't tend to hear back from some of our liaisons, and that's not helpful either. Maybe also looking at attendance of our liaisons. How often do they attend? Are they really serious about being partners with us? I think that's something to consider and think about and talk about as well.
I mean, pardon me, could we ask the liaisons to say something pertinent from our meeting at their meeting, so that the larger masses can hear it when they're there in person? And maybe they can even mention like when our meeting happens.
Yeah.
If you want to learn more about this,
Wanna
you
just
can go.
push the mic?
My apologies. So that if the people that are actually attending those meetings, if they want to learn more about what we're saying here, then they know when that meeting is,
Yeah.
because the town calendar can be, crazy. So maybe if we ask those folks to report out a little bit, it might create some.
Yeah,
Continuity.
like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's good, and, instead of just having liaisons do a report out when they're here, if they did a HRIC report out at their meetings, that would be helpful.
I don't want to, Lieutenant Rob is the only liaison here, and I've been trying to avoid to put him on the spot and be like, okay, because that's not me. But are there opportunities, and I know, I mean, you're always here, you're present, the chief is always here, you're at our events, and we see a lot of officers at our events. So that presence is so helpful and is always there. But we don't get all 57 officers at all our events. So do you see opportunities from your perspective, at least speaking of the police department, where what's happening here will be conveyed to them, and how does that look like? And do you think that's something that will be a good thing? Or maybe that's happening already. I don't know. If so, how?
All my other liaisons have abandoned me.
Yes, I'm sorry. I try to not go there, but
Yeah, I think so. Just to maybe to start, my report out is a little different. So no one's coming to my meetings. It's just me and the 50 people in my building. So I think you do have, when you have select board, you have school committee, you're talking to students, to parents, to voters, to taxpayers, to decision makers. So there's a chance to have a lot of big things done that way. If they're not tuning in tonight, like Dee said, they may be tuning into that meeting. On my end, just because of the nature of our relationship, we are probably the police and our committee, of all the liaisons, we are probably in the most communication, because sometimes it's planning for events, sometimes it's keeping the members of the committee informed about what's happening in town. Any information that I get from our meetings or the subcommittees, that's always reported directly back to Chief Level and Captain Sanborn, so they can start planning the planning for the event at the library a few weeks ago. Was just how that worked out really well, was just some initial conversations, which then from all of our groups involved in it, which turned into a bunch of meetings, which turned into great support for each other, and then a successful event. And how it really worked in taking the information both ways is the chief was very careful to balance a police and public safety aspect while respecting what the library wanted for a police presence. We didn't just say we're going to come in and do whatever we think is correct. It was several meetings with library staff, with town management staff, with Jasmine and her staff, and then the chief and the captains, and it worked out well. On my level, in addition to reporting back to the chief and the captains, we have quarterly staff meetings.
okay.
So when I report something to a staff meeting, that is then taken, the shift supervisors are they take that to each of their shifts. We have one set of minutes from this meeting. Everyone in our meetings takes their own minutes, so sometimes you get a different version of what I may have said, depending on who's writing it down. But that is how some of the information gets back to the men and women of the department. And then simply because I work here as part of this committee, my shift probably gets a lot more of it because they see me coming and going from the meetings and talking about the meetings and the different events. And I think a lot of events just happen during my working hours. So a lot of the time it's the staff from my shift that's actually attending those meetings. So they might get a little bit more information than maybe some of the folks who work the overnight. But while we don't have as big of an audience as select board and the school committee, there's still a lot of information going back and forth.
Thank you very much. That was very helpful.
And I'd like to say that that's a great example, even with a limited audience, that Rob is here and present, and we have that relationship between the police department and the HRIC, that we're able to do what we need to do and get the information out. And that's a great working relationship with the HRIC, which really, it's hard for me to see that with some of the other liaisons that we have. I mean, Pastor Doug and Rob are here, they're present, they're at the events, and we can communicate with them. But the problem is when their liaisons are not present or not answering emails, but there are issues that we need to talk about. And the reason why they're liaisons in the first place, and we can't do that, and that's not helpful for the community or for us. And it's true that they do have bigger audiences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so my understanding, I don't know if anyone has anything else to add, is that, I mean, thanks very much, Nathan and Rob. I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Not at all.
But I knew you would deliver, as always. So what I will so reach out to our liaisons, if that's okay, to just chat about, what our expectations are and making sure that we have this two-way street where the information that gets out of here is translated and vice versa. Right. Is that okay for everyone?
Yeah.
And then I can report back. Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect. Last item on the agenda, new business. Yes, Bob?
Yes, following protocol, after discussion of the 2023-2024 Massachusetts Indigenous Peoples Agenda, I would like to make a motion that this committee send an endorsement supporting this agenda to the State House. And let me give you copies of the bills.
I did have a copy, but I'd like to look at it too. Oh, okay, sure.
I can share with Krista.
Yeah, we'll share, and she can have.
Okay.
Oh, my friend was gonna say something.
Thank you.
Bob, can I just ask a question since I wasn't at that meeting? Do you mind just giving like a quick background on the intent and what kind of brought this about?
Massachusetts Indigenous Peoples Agenda is a set of policies and initiatives aimed at advancing the rights and interests of Native American tribes and individuals in the state. The agenda is a collaborative effort among several organizations and advocacy groups, including the Native American Legislative Caucus, the Massachusetts Commission on Indian Affairs, and the Massachusetts Indigenous Agenda Coalition. The Massachusetts Indigenous Peoples Legislative Agenda consists of several key priorities, including protecting sacred sites and cultural resources, promoting economic development and self-sufficiency, and addressing issues related to education, healthcare, and housing. One of the primary goals of the agenda is to increase the recognition and visibility of Native American tribes and communities in Massachusetts who have long been marginalized and excluded from mainstream society. One of the major challenges facing the implementation of the Massachusetts Indigenous Peoples Legislative Agenda is the lack of resources and political will to support its initiative. Many Native American tribes and communities in the state have significant barriers to economic development, including limited access to capital and resources. Despite these challenges, the Massachusetts Indigenous Peoples Legislative Agenda has made significant progress in advancing the rights and interests of Native American tribes and communities in the state. In 2020, the legislature passed a bill to protect sacred sites and cultural resources, which was supported by the Native American Legislative Caucus and other advocacy groups. The bill requires state agencies to consult with Native American tribes and communities before taking any action that could impact sacred sites and cultural resources. Members of the committee, in each of our meetings, we begin with an invocation to the Native Americans on whose land we occupy. I respectfully submit that if we do not back up this invocation with substantive concrete action, such as this endorsement, these words will seem hollow indeed. So again, I ask that our committee write an endorsement to the 2023 Massachusetts Indigenous Peoples Legislative Agenda. I'll take any questions you have concerning these bills. Do you have any?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Bob.
Kristen,
Questions?
just to answer your question, so this is a set of legislations that are up right now in Massachusetts, and they're concerning different things, like Bob said. But at one of our previous MAHRC meetings, we had a representative ask if different towns, the HRIC committees in these different towns can endorse it, which would be helpful. There is a form on the website. I can send that out. My apologies for not sending it out earlier, but we can directly endorse it through that website or write a letter. That's what they're asking. They just want individual committees in these towns to endorse it.
I just have a question. Are we able to, I don't know how that works. Are we able to endorse things like that?
I did not check with town council, but it is my understanding that we are.
Okay.
We can endorse it as the HRC, but we can also write something to send it to the select board for consideration. So we can do either or. That was my understanding.
Yeah.
I just had a comment. I just want to know if we have any sort of duty to enforce this once endorsed. And the only reason I'm asking that, and I would probably lean towards recommending it to the select board, is because if there is a duty to call something out and take action, that might be required by like the select board or another. There isn't?
What we're just endorsing is the legislation. They've got these legislations up there, and they're saying, can you please endorse these? We're putting this forward to the legislature. We're just asking that the committee also be in agreement that this is a great idea. That's pretty much it.
And I will speak to that. I was going to speak at the select board regarding this, and I was told 2 minutes before the meeting that I wasn't on the agenda that night, but that I will be on the agenda at the next meeting, and I will speak there.
These are these 5 separate acts?
Bills.
Bills.
They're bills.
They're bills.
Yeah, that are currently.
That you want passed by the Massachusetts legislature?
Yes.
House and Senate.
Yes.
House and Senate signed by the governor.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd be in favor of supporting, unless there's some reason we can't, and I don't see any reason we can't.
Well, I don't either, but because this is under new business, we actually can't vote on it. It has to be on the agenda. And the beginning of the bill, it says we are an indigenous-led coalition.
Right.
We are not. We are the HRC. So what we could do is put this on the agenda for our next meeting, and then just change, just have it reflect the voice of this committee.
Yeah, so it would be within our provenance to make such an endorsement.
We can. I mean, we're all residents. We can even make it individually if we choose to, right? We can contact our state legislature ourselves too, but yes, we can also do it as a committee. But what I'm saying is, would you, Bob, be able to make this draft reflect the committee? Because right now it's from the, we can keep the same bills, but just make sure that it's not from the indigenous-led coalition, but from the
I can
HRC.
write up as a statement by this committee.
May I? So we're just endorsing the indigenous-led coalition and their bills. We're not.
We are
so
not
we're
endorsing the
supporting
bill?
them. Yeah, we're not, we're supporting the coalition, it basically is what we're saying.
You'll be
Okay.
you'll be speaking to the select board prior to our next meeting.
Yes,
Hold
I
on,
will.
Paul, 1 second. So we're
So-
supporting the coalition,
Yes,
the
the
indigenous-led coalition.
yes.
So that means that we need to have a header or a different.
Correct, this is not, I mean, I
So
did
this is
put
not-
this together, Bob
Okay.
did, so,
Okay.
yeah.
So we need to have then a header or a statement saying that we're supporting this.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
I have that, I will have that printed
Okay.
next time. Yeah, it's not this.
Okay, so I have that on the agenda for the next meeting, and then we can vote on the statement supporting this bill.
I just have a question.
Yes.
Why is it going in front of the select board?
It doesn't need to.
Well,
Do they influence what this committee?
No.
they do not. I think that Bob is taking it in front of the select board as a resident of Danvers. I don't think that he's taking it as the HRC, from my understanding. I think you had already even mentioned it to them. You read it at one of the meeting, I think, right?
They already have the bills, yes.
Yeah, so, because the select board can, they can endorse
Yeah,
it
endorse
as
it
well,
separately.
yes.
It's
There's
completely
no
different.
reason that we can't endorse things and have the select board separately endorse it.
Yeah. I think that's okay, right?
Yeah, I don't see any reason why, we can endorse it when we're ready to endorse it.
Yeah,
And I think the select board has the same opportunity.
exactly.
We don't have to do it, I don't believe, in correlation, or we don't need their approval to endorse
No.
this.
That's right,
That's the way I look at it.
exactly. Any other new business?
I had a couple of
Yes,
things
please.
that maybe we've already talked about, and I just don't know. Summer meetings. Last summer, we took July and August off. As we're planning for next agendas and things, I wondered what our thoughts were for this year.
I mean, I'm up to taking July and August off, and any subcommittee work can continue to happen during that time.
I think, I agree
But-
with the chair.
Hold on.
Don't look at me, I don't get off, so.
I know, I'm just thinking, yes.
We also don't have to have the answers right now. We can bring it to our next meeting in June.
Yes, let's think about that for June, but I'm inclined to having July and August off.
I totally
But
agree.
as long as subcommittee work continue to happen, and obviously we always reserve, we can always call an emergency meeting if needed. But I think recharging for the summer, because the summer is usually very light and we don't want to be in a situation where we don't have a quorum. but there's still a lot of work. This work doesn't stop in the summer, unfortunately. So we have to have a mechanism in place where subcommittee work continues if we're going to be taking July and August off.
I would only just recommend being mindful of the timeline for reappointment and how that might impact this then, because that sounds like then everything will need to be wrapped up for that in the next meeting.
Yeah.
If we take July, which we have, if we decide to take July and August off, I just think, I totally agree that subcommittees should be nimble enough to meet, because before you know it, September, and then here we
Everything
go
else,
again.
exactly.
Yeah, and if you're 2 months behind, you're really 2 months behind. So one of the things that I would like to have on the next agenda is a formation of a subcommittee to direct fundraising. Because we're at that point right now where our Friends budget is pretty much gonna be down to zero. So we have to replace our finances somehow, and it can't, personal feeling is that we need a very frank discussion, form a subcommittee, and get going, because we can't, it's very difficult, I've said this before, and I apologize for dragging this on, but it's very difficult to fundraise 5, 6, and 7 events. You really have to fundraise for the year and then figure out what your budget's gonna be, and it makes it much easier on the subcommittees that will be preparing those events.
And Paul, if we don't have to fundraise, if we could get grants or like the cultural council, different things, I mean, to be, I agree, to have a subcommittee planning for that so that it's not reactive would be great.
I would totally agree with that. I think if we could get even like a one sponsor
Right.
wants to take care of the whole budget, that would be beautiful. So, any way we can do it is gonna be a lot easier than going out and trying to raise for 4, 5, 6 different events.
And not to put you on the spot,
No,
Paul.
no.
And
No.
we talk about this quietly, but
Yeah.
I'll talk about it loudly this time. What do we, I mean, we do a lot of good work in this town.
Yeah.
And we do great work. And we have a line, how do we get, I mean, you're on FinCom, how do we get a line item for next year?
Look, I just went through FinCom.
That is, I know, you just did.
I will.
So for this year, it's already gone, but
Yeah.
does that require us, when we get that subcommittee, putting a package together and bringing it to you or to Jasmine or to town manager to say, look, this is what we've been spending the past 24 years. And we've tried to fundraise all this time, and it's a very light budget in the scheme of things. We don't need 20,000. You know, these things are 500 here, $350 there. Is that something
you can't bring it to me? Really.
What's the process?
The process, I would say, first and foremost, would be to bring it to, with Jasmine's help, quite frankly, to the town manager.
Can I just clarify? Because we have a budget line. So are you asking about expanding that budget
That's right.
line?
Yeah.
I
The
need to look into
HRC.
that. Yeah.
Yes.
The HRIC budget line is a line item. It's not.
Well, we know we got MLK cover. We can do something for. I don't think we can use that for the scholarship.
No, you can't.
We
No.
cannot. But we have MLK, we have Pride, we have Juneteenth, we have Women History Month, we have, you know, Raise Amity Day, we have, we have Hanukkah. We do have all these events that we run throughout the year, and I think we should find a way.
And that might only be the tip of the iceberg, because we don't have a heavy schedule, at least not right now, in the fall. I think up until Hanukkah.
We would have Latinx Heritage
We
Month
have
as a
the Latinx
recurring
Heritage,
event,
exactly.
and the menorah lighting
The
would be
menorah
the
lighting,
two.
yeah.
So if we have those core events, maybe we can put a package together and be like, look, we need help for this. Now that the budget has passed starting July 1st, we can start working on next year budget now, so that we can get that in time and have some back and forth discussion.
See, that budget right now, that that's a minuscule budget compared to what we're working with now as far as
Exactly,
events. It's
exactly.
really minuscule.
Exactly.
I'm not sure it's even gonna cover, maybe, hopefully cover MLK.
Exactly.
Just to tie in a couple conversations we've had in this committee before. First, that before Kristen left, we talked about, I believe the Friends voted her in as treasurer. And it sounds like that will be a conversation somewhere between her in that role and this potential subcommittee. It also sounds like we need to revisit the conversation of subcommittees, because we've talked about already as a committee the capacity for putting on these events. And it's one thing to think about the budget, but we have had time and time again the issue of saying who wants to volunteer to do this, and people, it's like pulling teeth essentially. So I think that's a first conversation before we think about like what money's being spent. The third conversation to tie in, I believe, is one that Dr. Desmond had brought up in the past, which is what is this function of the committee? And perhaps we revisit that and think about that conversation, this committee having that conversation with the town about how have potentially expectations of this committee changed? How has that been influenced now by my role existing? Because a lot of what you all did really fulfilled, to an extent, the work I am doing, sort of, right? There's a lot more to it, but for a long time you were operating as that arm. So I want to make sure that we resolve ongoing conversations that really haven't had a resolution up to this point, before we then try to add another one that requires some of the information from the resolution of these other conversations.
Sounds good.
So where do we stand now? I mean, when we get ready for the June meeting, the itinerary, can we have a discussion, at least the formation of a subcommittee that can work through all these questions that we've just talked about? And then where do we go with it? I know where I would like to go with it, okay? And I know what I would like to have in my own mind as a budget. And then I would also say that none of that can cover scholarships. And so you still, somehow, some way, you're still gonna have to find a way to cover, well, this year, $1,000, but maybe that's the easy part. But the other part is what Jasmine's referred to. We've got these events coming up, and it's gonna be July 1st before we know it, and we're off and running again.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely
I don't wanna
can-
get into any more details or anything like that as to what some of my private thoughts are, but I think I would be more than willing to share them with a subcommittee that's formed.
Okay, we can look into that.
As the treasurer, I would be happy to coordinate that conversation. I think starting with the June meeting to put that together would be good, and in parallel in the June meeting, we need to bring back to the agenda what we're doing about all these events, like you said. Because what we used to do, what I tried to do in the springtime was go through the events and get the subcommittees to be assigned. There wasn't traction on that. So I think, how do we justify what we're asking for? Because I also have numbers in my head that I'd like to ask for, but can we really continue to run all of these events if we don't have the muscle to do it? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think
Definitely.
that's actually.
There's a question
Question
in
from
the
the
audience.
audience.
Oh, yeah, yes.
Can you go to the microphone, please, for our online viewers?
One question.
Only one, I get three in the other meeting. Bill Bradstreet, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1. Is there a mechanism in place to, in general, let everyone in town know that donations would be gratefully accepted? Even a corporate sponsor, the money coming from someone, doesn't have to be from Danvers. It's the money that can be used. I made the suggestion at the select board meetings that everyone gets an electric bill in town. They have a newsletter or flyers that are put in with items of interest or importance. I've been told it's very busy, but you could at least ask if something relating to donations could be added to the...
Oh, sure.
You can ask. When I ask, I always preface it by saying, you're working on it.
Okay.
But anyway, it's just a thought.
Thank you.
Mr. Bradstreet reminded me as well, a conversation that came up in our Pride meeting was the talk of the Friends of the Human Rights and Inclusion Committee creating a Venmo account, which for those who don't know is just like a more contemporary way of transferring money. So you can just send it through your phone, which for many younger generations that's who don't carry cash or who don't even know what a checkbook is, this is another faster way, to Mr. Bradstreet's point of like raising awareness and following up with like, here's the QR code or here's our Venmo handle. So that is likely to be another part of the treasurer conversation. And I do know that it was a hope to have that functioning by our Pride event. I don't know if that was communicated to you, but related to this conversation.
Could we have a note on the website to that point of like, we accept donations, something that like says what to do if people want to donate?
I will ask.
Yes, exactly.
I will
Yeah.
ask.
I don't know if we can.
Yes, because I'm not entirely sure we can,
Yeah.
especially because for the public, like if they're looking at that, it's not going to be clear the difference between the distinction between what is the Friends and what is
Yeah.
this town group, and that might cause
I
some
don't think
angry
we
phone
can.
calls.
Yeah.
But we also talked about, you had brought up in the way past about like marketing materials and things like that, and that whole conversation of branding might also help.
Right.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Even like an asterisk that says like if we had it say, we gratefully would accept any donations through our, not 501c3 Friends of the Diversity Committee, whatever, and then like an asterisk that says, this is what that is. Like you just explain it a little bit, because I didn't understand that beforehand. That's an option too. I had two other things.
Sure.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I wondered if we're gonna...
One per month.
Yeah, exactly. If we're gonna take the summer off, then perhaps this would be best for September, but if not, inviting the new superintendent to a meeting to be introduced to the committee. I'm sure September is probably super busy for him, so we could figure out when, but just I think engage. I know he's been to our events, and just engaging with him. I don't know if we've invited him to Pride, but maybe we do that. I don't know.
That would be a great idea. Invite him to Pride.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
And then the third thing was about the Accessibility Committee, which I love the name, by the way. Are we planning to have a liaison for that? 'Cause I think we talked
Yes.
about that before.
So forgive me because I did drop the ball in including that on the agenda for this month, but it actually did work out based on their availability. I would like to add to the agenda for our June meeting to have them at least join this meeting to have a conversation with the committee, and I would love for a potential for a liaison to be on the list of conversation. And it looks like, given that we had one liaison while we started that conversation about their function, it might be helpful to clear up our expectations of liaisons before we then take another one on. As you see me scrambling to set down name tags before our meetings because we have so many people. But definitely, they are very interested in that, and they certainly want to extend that connection.
Perfect.
I did attend one of their meetings, both as a representative of the library and the Human Rights and Inclusion Committee, and did express our interest in working with them.
Awesome. Thank you. Yes.
Just an anachronism, I think, is a term. I want a series of letters representing a thought. You might Jews bracket what it stands for. Because some
An
of us
acronym?
at my age get confused by these.
Do you mean acronym?
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 Is that
Yeah.
what it is?
Of the letters of the first letters of things?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Mr. Brassi is just saying that when we use an acronym, we should define what it is so
Right.
people know. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're gonna use a lot of them, maybe a legend.
I'll add that too.
Excuse me.
Yes.
It's not an unusual request. If you look at the, annual town budget and the FinCom, they have a whole they have a whole listing, because you go crazy. If you're reading the budget items by item, and it goes in and out, and then you just ARCA, DDDW, or something like that. You don't know what they're even talking about. They know, but
We don't.
the average person doesn't know.
Yep. Thank you for that reminder. And also, just even thinking about our own community agreements as a committee, I'm hoping that we're creating a space where even us and our audience members feel comfortable, like in the moment when it happens. So if it happens again hopefully we're wrapping up shortly, but just like throw your hand up so we can catch it in the moment so we can work on that. Because even I am guilty of, just for brevity's sake, pushing through that. But that's part of the language access conversation. So thank you, Mr. Bradstreet.
Any other comments? That's it? Okay, thank you. No other new business? Yes?
Move to adjourn?
Okay, I need a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Good night, Danvers.